We've got more drama in Dalton. We've just got stuff going on. Let's get into it. Illinois Comptroller stops some state payouts to Dalton and threatens fines. Remember Lori Lightfoot had her report last week? We talked about that. And one of the things that came out of that is that Village of Dolton hasn't filed any of their official accounting reports that they're required to by state law. So now the comptroller goes, hey now, yeah, the cat's out of the bag, right? Everybody knows, oh yeah, they're not filing what they should be. So the comptroller is like, okay, yeah, now I can't deny this anymore. I can't just ignore this. And they've been requesting from Village of Dolton for a long time. Hey, we need your reports. Where's your reports? Now, funding that normally would go through to the Village of Dolton from the state is now cut off. And the state is saying, yeah, we're going to fine you and we're going to do some stuff. Here we go. Not only do we have this topic, we've also got this one, which is Dalton's mayor indicted and terminated assistant chief of police, threatened officers with insubordination. And this little mandatory meeting that wasn't a meeting, and we're going to get into that one. Watch a little video on that. And we've just got stuff. We've got drama in Dalton happening 10 ways from Sunday, right? Dalton's indicted police chief banned from village property. Officers told Mayor Henyard's mandatory meeting was not mandatory. That's the meeting we just saw on that prior clip. I mean, you've just got stuff happening all over because there's nobody in charge in Dalton. There's nobody in charge. Okay, this is the meat and bones of this one. Illinois Comptroller Susana Mendoza said Thursday she's immediately suspending what are called offset fund payments to Dalton for the village's failure to turn over annual financial reports to her office. Interesting that this coincides with Lori Lightfoot's report last week. Like, oh, good Lord, yeah, we've been keeping this on the down low. Hey, a Village of Dalton, could you file some reports? Now their hand is forced. They got to cut this stuff off and just basically force the Village of Dalton into a position of, you got to send us some information because we're sending you money. You're not sending us what you need. And that's the deal we have. The money this year is on pace to total $135,000. And Mendoza said she is also threatening fines if Dalton doesn't file the required reports. Those fines could total $78,600. Do you think Mayor Tiff, the super mayor, dictator of Dalton, Tahoe Tiff without the Tahoes now, do you think she cares? No, it's going to be somebody else's problem because she's going somewhere. Yeah. The offset money comes from things such as child support. Okay, we got child support, parking ticket, traffic fines that an individual who lives in the community has not paid. According to Abden Palash, a spokeswoman for Mendoza's office, the money owed is withheld from individual state income tax refunds by the comptroller, then distributed to municipalities. All right, let's break that down for just a second, because the first couple of times I read that, I was like, what? I don't get it. What are you talking about? All right, so there is state income tax, right? You've got Illinois state income tax. Not every state has that. Washington state doesn't have that, but a lot of states do. California got, and Oregon has some really high state income tax. So you get a refund for your state income tax, right? Just like you do from the IRS. You can get a refund. If you've got a refund coming and you owe money from something like child support that you haven't paid, or parking tickets that you haven't paid, or traffic fines that you haven't paid, to the Village of Dalton, the state can take money out of your refund and send it to the Village of Dalton if you owe. So it's kind of like this, the state just clips that money like the IRS can do, clips that money, sends it to Dalton, and it's typically 135, somewhere in that range. Not a huge amount, but it's money that the Dalton counts on as part of its income stream, right? They always get it. All right, why wouldn't we get it this year? Oh, because we haven't filed those reports. Palash said many Chicago area communities, including Chicago and Dalton, contract with the comptroller's office to collect and distribute the money. The money that went to Dalton last year totaled $120,000, according to her office. In a news release, Mendoza said that for about 2 years, the administration of Dalton, Mayor Tiffany Henyard, has willfully refused to turn over the annual reports all municipalities are required to file with her office. That includes an annual financial report, financial audit, and reports on the performance of Dalton's 3 tax increment financing districts. Okay, that's a new one. I have not seen that one before. I knew about the annual financial report and the financial audit. I remember Lori Lightfoot talking about that. I don't remember the reports on the performance of Dalton's 3 tax increment financing districts, but is what it is. And I have no reason to not believe that, right? When municipalities around Illinois are having legitimate problems filing their annual reports with us based on staffing or other issues, don't have anybody that can get it together, that kind of deal, we earnestly work with them to get into compliance, Mendoza said in the release. Dalton is different. I'm going to second that. Dalton is different. The mayor's office has refused to communicate with us or address the problem. If Mayor Henyard refuses to follow state law, my office will use the tools at our disposal to safeguard the interests of Dalton's citizens. Well, at least somebody's, verbally trying to say what they're going to safeguard the interest of Dalton's citizens, because Tiff, the super mayor, she has gone absolutely rogue, holding a meeting that is not mandatory with a police chief who has been fired, claiming that Keith, their village manager, has been fired and not to listen to him. And if they don't, police officers in this mandatory meeting that's not mandatory, if they don't do what Tiff, the super mayor, says, and what Chief Lacey says, that it's insubordination, but he's already been fired. And what time is it? So it's 2:00 our time. 4:00 is when Chief Lacey's bankruptcy hearing takes place. One of his bankruptcy hearings. He's having that happen right now, like 5 minutes from now, whenever on the docket. So he's having this meeting with the police officers, and it's like, okay, they're required, but they're not, because the mayor isn't their boss. And the police chief, he's fired. He's on admin, whatever. They're just being, told a whole bunch of conflicting information that doesn't make any sense. But that's because this is a showdown of power. You've got a showdown of power happening in real time in Dalton. She said her office, the comptroller, has been notifying the village of this delinquency over the past 2 years. Well, they haven't filed one since 2021, and Tiff took over about that time, right? In a report she presented to the public and Dalton trustees at a meeting August 8th, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said the village had not been in compliance with state law requiring the filing of annual financial reports. Hired by trustees as a special investigator to look into village finances and Henyard's administration, Lightfoot said there is no annual report for Dalton beyond fiscal year 2021. That was prior to Tiff coming into office, and that no audited financial statements are available after that point. So you got nothing. And these are required. So this Lori Lightfoot, and I don't know if this was planned. I don't know if this is coordinated, but it's interesting timing, right? Exactly 1 week later, all of a sudden, state comptrollers, no more money for you, because where's your reports? The village's fiscal or budget year runs from May 1st through April 30th, and Lightfoot noted at the meeting that the village board has yet to adopt a spending plan for this fiscal year. Yeah. Hey, what's your budget like? Don't have one. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. This is all collapsing as we speak. Mendoza said state statute requires the comptroller to initiate forced audits of municipalities that stop complying with laws to file annual reports with the office. It also has the authority to level fines. So not only do we have, like in the title says, they can also initiate forced audits. Yeah, we're going to force this audit on you. Hope you enjoy it. She said her office can assess fines $7,000 per year per unified report, totaling $78,600 for Dalton. That would be in addition to the roughly $135,000 the village could lose in offset fines. Our office sends the village on an annual basis if administration does not resume filing reports. They're not going to file reports. This administration does not have the capability of filing reports at this point in time. They're so far down the road of, yep, let's not worry about that. Receipts, no issues. Taking money from here, paying here, funding from Thornton into the charity. I mean, you've just got all these expenses that aren't legit. You've got overtime being paid that probably isn't legit. You've literally got overtime being paid to Chief Lacey, who's no longer Chief Lacey, who's still acting like Chief Lacey and having mandatory meetings that aren't mandatory. I mean, the whole thing is just, what do you got going on here? Mendoza said her office notified the village Thursday of the immediate suspension of offset funds and that a forced audit and fines will begin soon if the village does not come into compliance with the law. The actions by the comptroller, a Democrat, represent the first such penalization of Dalton by a state agency, particularly one headed by someone out of Henyard's own political party. Well, yeah, there's going to be a bunch more of that too, because you can't get around what's going on in Dalton. They're just so far in violation of state law that this is the beginning. Mendoza said Dalton Village Clerk Allison Key emailed her office frustrated that the village is also not complying with the state's Freedom of Information Act. Now, we've heard this multiple times, haven't we? Just Freedom of Information Act request, and the village just basically goes, we're not responding. As village clerk, I have been unable to reply to Freedom of Information Acts because the village administrator, Keith Freeman, who is also, in addition to Chief Lacey, Keith Freeman is under bankruptcy fraud charges as well, has instructed department heads to not comply to any Freedom of Information Acts requests coming from me, Key said in an email to the comptroller. Key and her email to Mendoza said that Freeman has illegally removed me as Freedom of Information officer without Board of Trustees knowledge or vote of approval. He has continued to interfere with the Freedom of Information Act process for the past 2 years. Ooh, yeah. We've been hearing that. I mean, we've kind of known that. But to see that in writing right now is like, oh, okay. All right. So this is how it went down. You've got these Freedom of Information Acts that legally, municipalities have to respond to, and they're just not. Just like filing reports. No, we're not going to do that. Receipts, who needs them? Just hand out money to people left and right. The blanket of benevolence, right? I stole that from a New York City podcast. Blanket of benevolence. In February, in response to a lawsuit filed by Nexstar Media, Attorney General Corne Raoul filed a binding opinion ordering Dalton to turn over documents the state had requested of the village via the state Freedom of Information law, but Dalton disregarded the order. Oh, I'm shocked. I am shocked. I can't believe they're disregarding the order. Tiff, what are you doing? Dictator of Dalton, you need to get on some reports. That's just not going to happen, is it? This village literally is so wildly out of control. So you got that one. All right. Remember, comptroller, no longer sending money. They can fine. They can do a forced audit. They can, do a bunch of stuff that's not good. But they're not going to be the only entity that's going to be withholding money. You're going to have a slew of that happening. Our next one, this all just came out in the last couple hours. Dalton's mayor indicted and terminated assistant chief of police. Those are two different entities. We got Tiff, we got Chief Lacey. They are threatening officers with insubordination. During a meeting today, Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard and the federally felony indicted and terminated by village board, Assistant Chief Louis Lacey. It's a long-ass sentence, but it makes sense. I love the fact they threw in felony indicted. Threatened Dalton police officers with insubordination if they do not recognize Lacey as their chief of police. How would you like to be a cop in Dalton right now? All right. Yeah. Okay. So they're telling us to do this, but that guy's fired and that guy's got a hearing like in a couple hours. She's a lunatic talking about, talking about Tiff, dictator of Dalton. She's a lunatic. She's saying a bunch of stuff that I'm getting the feeling is not legal. And I don't even think is our police chief. I mean, you've got to have these police officers in Dalton who are sitting there during this meeting that's mandatory, but it's not mandatory. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know. I mean, so much confusion. Lacy is just a couple of hours shy of his arraignment on by a federal grand jury on felony bankruptcy fraud charges. Here's the video. Let's watch the video. This is... This just keeps, there's Tiff Tiff. There's Tiff Tiff. This just keeps it going, right? I mean, it's just so crazy. You know what? I'm going to pull it into here so you can get a little bit better of a look.
No, Keith Freeman do not work here. He's fired. So stop playing these silly games, Board of Trustees, and putting people's lives in jeopardy. So I'm here to tell everybody from the horse's mouth, which I made this statement at the board meeting. So it's nothing different. So any questions? Anybody questions?
So you guys know, Keith Freeman did get a letter of termination. Okay? Now, from this point on, do what you want. But anything after this is insubordination. Okay?
Any questions? Concerns? And then always keep our mental in check because you know there's a lot going on. And I hate that y'all going through this stuff. Just for real. On some real stuff. Go see HR. Don't let nobody mess with your peace. Keep your peace. Whatever y'all can do. Keep it. But that's it. As long as I can. Come on now. They put on the show called
I can't even understand half of that, right? I mean, I don't even know what she's saying. Okay, so Keith Freeman is fired. That's new. I mean, you don't even know what to really even report here because so much of this is conflicting information. I don't think maybe Keith Freeman is terminated. I don't really know. I haven't seen that confirmed anywhere else, but I also haven't seen this information anywhere else. So let's go with Keith Freeman has been fired. I kind of felt like Keith Freeman would probably get the axe because keeping him on board would be problematic. But I think they had to have enough time to probably do that. So I would say probability of Keith Freeman being fired, yes, he is probably working on the side. Because again, he is the guy where he knows where the bodies are buried. He's the village administrator. He's kind of the village manager, for lack of a better word, if they have one. He's as close as they're going to have to one. So what they're saying is that Keith Freeman is toast and Chief Lacy is still in charge. Chief Lacy is still in charge. But then over here, we've got Dalton's indicted police chief banned from village property. Officers told Mayor Henyard's mandatory meeting, not mandatory. Okay. So again, could you imagine being a cop in this scenario? You're like, okay, what do I do? Well, you just go out and do your job and it's who you answer to, right? It's who you answer to. All right. If you're not following my orders, I'm Chief Lacy, you're insubordinate. And then you're told that the chief is fired and he is banned from the village property. And that the mandatory meeting you just had is not mandatory because it's not a legit meeting. Because Chief Lacy, not Chief Lacy, Mayor Tiff Tiff, still Mayor Tiff Tiff, but has no authority to go down this other just psycho nut job stuff. In an email sent by Dalton Village Administrator Keith Freeman to all police officers. Now remember, Chief Lacy and Tiff Tiff said that Village Administrator Keith Freeman is fired. So, okay. All right. And this was yesterday. Acting Chief Lisa, and I believe the meeting that they just had was from today. Acting Chief Lewis Lacy is no longer employed by the Village of Dalton. Email from Keith Freeman. Lacy is not permitted in any village spaces reserved for employees, only without escort. Got to escort him there. All right. So guys, did you escort him in there in that building, in that room? Did you guys escort him? No. You sat there and you took it because you're not really sure what you're doing. You've literally got the blind leading the blind here. And by blind, I mean they can't see a effing thing. Any contact with or orders given by Lacy or Henyard regarding Lacy's work status should be directed in writing to Inspector Baker. Inspector Baker. Who's Inspector Baker? I don't know. I don't know. This whole thing is just getting wacky and out of control. You've got shenanigans. There are shenanigans happening here. Mayor Tiffany Henyard's call for a mandatory meeting with all police officers, Henyard and Lacey, is not mandatory. Not mandatory. And any officer may choose to attend or not attend without fear of repercussions. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. On another note, former Dalton police officer Louis Lacey will be arraigned on his 9-count federal grand jury indictment on bankruptcy fraud charges today at 4 p.m. in the Daly Center. That'll be exciting. Hey, Chief Lacey, what's up? How you doing? Hold the line or not. How's that bankruptcy coming? Yeah, you're reporting all your income there, former chief. Former chief. Got any more meetings you're going to schedule that aren't really legit, that you're going to say are legit? Hey, is Keith Freeman fired? We don't really know. So much craziness going on because leadership is wildly in question. When is somebody going to step in and have Tiffany Henyard step down? Somebody's got to do that. Who does that? Is that the FBI? Do they arrest her? Basically place her in custody? What do they do? Got to charge her with something to do that though, right? Yeah. With Chief Lacey? Yeah. That whole 9-count federal grand jury indictment on bankruptcy fraud charges. Yeah. That may be problematic. So is the chief fired? Yeah. Is Keith Freeman fired? We don't really know, but we've got emails coming out from Keith Freeman that lead one to believe he's still in some kind of power of position yesterday. I mean, this thing is moving so quickly, isn't it? It's wild. All right. So stay tuned. Make sure that you're subscribed to News for Reasonable People because we're on top of this. We're on top of this. Thanks for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.